haven't done a reaction video to these guys in forever. It's been months and months and months. I've mostly been focusing on games. But I want to get back into it because quite frankly, they do some cool stuff and I like to give little commentaries and these little quick 10, 15, 20-minute videos. So that's what qualifies as my introduction. Let's just jump the hell right in and go.
You exist in a truly secret place nobody but you can enter. Your mind. When we say mind, we mean the place where you, whatever you are, exist. It's the totality of your inner world, the location of your consciousness and memories, the toolset of your intelligence. It's the place where all of your wants, thoughts, and emotions happen, where you
It's the inner you. It's your sense of yourself, basically, is what it means there. There's the outer you, which is the person you present to the world. And then there's this inner idea of you, which is a mixture of all these different things, you know, your consciousness, your experience. And yeah, that's basically what they're talking about there. It's your inner dialogue, it's your inner sense of self.
think, learn, dream, and imagine things, consciously and unconsciously. Your mind is truly your own, a universe only directly accessible and inhabited by you and inaccessible to anyone else in the universe.
Unless you're a woman, and then you think all men can read your mind. Sorry.
And your mind is probably unique to you. Probably because how would we know if two minds are the same? What do you see when you imagine an apple? A detailed scenery?
I want to push back a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit on that. I mean, there are common themes. I mean, I'm sure everyone who's watched this, as you know, if you've watched videos or you've seen comments and stuff, people basically saying the same things, you know, the same sort of general themes typically come up. There's sort of cultural norms and things like that, which we all kind of like grasp onto type deal. So we're not that unique.
A crisp image with clear details and color. Is the apple hanging in a void? Can you rotate it? Is it a 2D shape? Is it colorless or transparent or very vague? Or don't you see anything at all but feel what an apple feels like to you? Maybe a weird mix? Do you have an internal voice that narrates your life?
That's a good point, actually. Like, if I try and imagine, say, an apple like that, like I don't actually necessarily picture a perfect apple in my mind. What I have is a kind of a fuzzy concept of an apple. But then if you ask me to describe it, like I'll go into more detail, but it's not like I have something there. I'm like a painting or a picture I'm literally describing. It's just like, there's just a sense of an apple there. Does that make sense?
Do you have an inner monologue? Is there silence inside your mind? Do you?
I know a lot of people where I'm convinced there's nothing going on up there. It's silence. And I also know a couple of people where I'm convinced that there is voices up there and they don't belong to them. But again, it's an interesting thing. It's like, I don't think most people have, like, say, like an inner dialogue going on. What we have is that we feel a thing and then our brain kind of interprets that and then we rationalize it and give it voice. You know, it's not as though when you're angry at something, your brain sort of says to you, "We're angry, aren't we, Chris?" That's not it. Well, you feel angry, and then your brain kind of interprets that or tries to make sense of why you're feeling that and the cause of it, etc. That's kind of the sense I get from what I understand of it.
Only hear voices when you read? Or do you process thoughts non-verbally, or even just feel the world around you?
I think it's most of the last one. Although here's a question, like when let's say when you are reading, do you read in your own voice? Like when you talk, you can sort of hear yourself, you know, you hear what you sound like. When you're thinking, do you think in that voice? Or is there a slight disconnect there? You know? Does that make any sense?
It's a bit stunning how many variations of inner universes humans have and how different our minds must be. Humans have arguably the most complex minds on Earth, but today it's widely accepted that minds are not exclusive to us. There are trillions of animal minds out in the world, unaccountable little secret universes, forever locked to us. And by looking at them and
well, we're also somewhat locked to other people. I mean, the only real way we're able to communicate is that we're assuming that the person we're talking to has had something resembling a similar experience to us. So there's a similar base level of experience there. And then using this base level, we can kind of communicate concepts through words or images in a way that makes sense to them. Because if you think about it, if we were that unique in our own minds, that the other person, that we were so indistinguishable within our minds to someone else, it'd be almost impossible to convey or to communicate how we feel or what we're thinking, because the connective points, the reference points just wouldn't line up. Does that make any sense at all there? Like, imagine a relationship where your partner just doesn't, you can't comprehend at all, you know, what's going on, how they're thinking, how they're feeling, and the communication just doesn't line up. I mean, it's nothing but frustration, but obviously we do, generally speaking, have a common theme there, at least most of the time. I don't know if that makes any sense.
In their evolution, we may be able to learn why our minds are as stunning as they are today. A pretty wild idea is that minds might have originally evolved to control your movements, to create a gap between all of your sensory input and your motor output, how you react to information by moving your body. A tool to deal with the world. When life emerged,
Super quick, that's interesting though, because it's like, this is just my sort of sense of things. Like, if you think of like a lion in the Serengeti plain, yeah, and a zebra's walk past, relatively recently, and there's zebra tracks on the dirt. Like, from what I understand, a lion, if they're looking around, unless if the zebra isn't visible, they can't see it, and there's no sense, so they can't smell it. They can't look at the tracks and think, something was here. You know what I mean? They're unable to maintain the connection between a trackway and the thing that made the tracks. Like, their brains just don't work in that way. They're kind of locked to an extent within like a prison. You can't teach it like, oh, by the way, this is what this is. Whereas with human beings, what we're able to do is we're able to sort of disassociate ourselves a little bit and kind of go, it's the reason we can relate to other people or relate to other, circumstances. It's because we can look at a situation and go, oh, because I see these things here, this means this thing happened. Does that make any sense? I think it does.
it was without any minds, but just cells, able to eat, poop, and reproduce. They already had to navigate a complex and dangerous world and to process sensory input, but they were extremely inflexible. If a cell had the inner state hungry and sensed food, it automatically moved in that direction, or it flapped around randomly until it ran into a meal by accident. This worked well enough for billions of years and still does, but as life exploded in complexity and became multicellular, cells began to dedicate themselves to processing information.
See, I still think to some extent we're kind of like that today still, if I'm honest. I mean, people, like, it's like I was saying earlier, generally speaking, it's not like a thing happens and then we have an intellectual dialogue with ourselves about this thing and then draw conclusions about it in which we then act on. Typically, a thing happens or we feel something or an event takes place. We emotionally and instinctively react to it, and then we rationalize or intellectually trying to understand why we reacted that way after the fact. Does that make any sense at all? It's usually only people who are quite well trained and are accustomed to a certain thing, like think of like MMA fighters. If they're in a fight or something happens, because they're so used to it, they don't instinctively react so much. They're able to kind of go, okay, which means they can stay calm and they can think through. Whereas someone who hasn't fought before would be like just nerves and fear because that kind of overwhelms them. It's because I just think it's because of the disconnect between how you feel and how you process it. You know?
The first very simple minds emerged, little more than tiny gaps, virtual spaces in which sensory information could be processed for a short moment before these early animals had to react. Roundworms only have 302 neurons in total, yet they're already able to learn things like this thing is bad and retain a memory that changes behavior for a few hours before they forget again. Minds on this level most likely don't reason or think, but use simple rules that work well in their environments.
Yeah, it's like, if do A and B happens, then do C. If do B and Z happens, then do X. It's like very rudimentary, you know, if yes, go that way, if no, go that way type setups. But like I said before, I still think people on some level kind of respond like at the core like that. It just depends how our brain's been conditioned. But then as you go up the layers, things become more rationalized and, you know.
Scientists still debate whether this counts as mind or are still just pre-programmed automated reflexes. With more neurons, animals can freeze before they act, process and interpret information, and make decisions for what's the best option at that moment. This is arguably where a true inner space, a mind, begins to emerge. And some insects may have something like it, like our buddy the bee. With a brain smaller than a sesame seed and about 1 million neurons, a bee has a much larger mind gap. And it's filled with information about the world.
Oh, yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, bees can, like, you know, they can go out, they can discover, say, a new patch of flowers, and then they can make their way back to the hive, and they sort of dance, you know, they boogie a bit, and then after they finish boogieing, it kind of tells other bees where it is, and then they all go back there and just kind of murk it and take all the nectar for themselves. I mean, ants do a similar thing. I wouldn't call it consciousness, though, so much as just like, you know, it's a more complex version of what, say, a flatworm does.
It builds and remembers a huge mental map of flowers over square kilometers of terrain, cross-referencing it with the position.
But it doesn't know why it's doing it, though. That's the key point. It's simply pre-programmed to do it. It's like I was saying before, like a bird, for example, is way more complicated. It has way more neurons than, say, a bee does. And it can do more things, understand more things. But like a bird can't change the design of its nest to, say, match a different environment. Whereas a person, you know, if the person was like out camping or something and the rain was getting through, they can improvise new things to fix things. You know, like depending on basically how complicated the brain is and how well it performs, it's the ability to sort of disconnect yourself from your situation and kind of look at it from a wider view and go, right, what do I need to do to improve this, or what do I need to do to change this? Like a bird can't do that, a bee can't do that. I think apes and maybe dolphins kind of can, I'm pretty sure. But like, yeah, it's the same thing with lions as well. Like as I was saying before, if a lion sees the tracks in the ground, it can't disconnect and go, oh, this track isn't just dirt. It's not just like another form of dirt or whatever, or just a natural part of the terrain. This tells me something about what's going on around me. They can't do that. People can.
Of the sun to find its way. Bees can take shortcuts, so they can't be simply following reflexes, but are actually navigating their internal maps. In extreme cases, when resources are scarce, bees can move up to 10 kilometers from their hives to collect food, the equivalent of going from Paris to Rome for groceries. And they teach the location of the food by dancing. Minds have emerged a few times in evolutionary history and evolved in different directions. So while we're telling this story by increasing complexity, in reality, minds are more like a weird mix of different experiments depending on what niches the animals fill. Mind complexity probably increases dramatically as we add more neurons, like the octopus that has about 500 million of them. Only 40% of their neurons are in their central brain, while each of their arms has their own mini nerve centers that taste, process information locally at the same time, and act on their own. The central brain does still coordinate them for complex behavior like catching prey, because imagine 8 arms doing their own thing all the time.
I mean, would we say that the arms have a level of intelligence, or would we just call it a reflex? You know? I mean, it makes sense. If you have that many limbs, that's a lot of like mechanical processing that the central brain has to do. So if a certain level of like intelligence or a certain level of processing is given out to the limbs themselves, then I think octopus can taste with their limbs. So then if you're sticking your hand into like a crack or something underwater, it's like they can sense what's going on within there. And if they have to react, like pull away quick or grab something, then they can do it. And it just gives it that little bit extra chance of success or survival, because it's not having to go from the what the fuck's it called? Tentacle, whatever it is, the arm, all the way to the brain, get processed there, and then go all the way back out. You know what I mean? It's like it can just react quick, I think.
But different arms are specialized and used primarily for different tasks, like exploring or movement. and we know their arms can make decisions independently to some degree and have some autonomy. Octopuses are very intelligent animals, able to do loads of complex things, so their minds should be somewhat complex. But how does their mind experience things? Is it distributed over their whole body? Does an octopus feel like multiple smaller minds interacting as one thing? If octopuses show how strange minds can be, birds show how sophisticated they can become if it develops in a different direction. Some bird species with billions of neurons probably have surprisingly sophisticated minds where they can go one step further. While minds may have started as a gap to delay action, bird minds are able to simulate a map of reality, including other players. Scrub jays are hoarders that catch and hide all sorts of food in different places, from worms to nuts. Inside their mind, they keep track of time and are aware that fresh food goes bad. So after a few days have passed, they'll ignore the hiding places of dead worms and
I think I watched a video or heard something years and years ago about a bird. I think it was a crow, and it had learned how to fish because it had watched people putting, bread into the water, into lakes to feed the fish. And it had clocked onto the fact that if it did that, it would be able to get fish, and it actually could do it quite successfully. The problem is that it's not something it can pass on. It was like a fluke of nature type deal. Whereas human beings can pass knowledge and experience on, a bird can't. It's like it's got a pre-program set in there. And I guess there's some flexibility to allow to adapting. But like generally speaking, if a bird learns something, it can't then go to another bird and communicate that, you know? So it's like the lion or like the flatworm and stuff. To some extent, it's still trapped within like its own box in terms of its like mental capacity.
instead go for the nuts that are still good. Probably more impressive, they might be able to simulate the minds of other birds. If a scrub jay is hiding food and
That's a big one. That is a big one. It's the ability not just to understand what you think, but the ability to like think put yourself into another mind and go, what do I think that mind is thinking about me? And what do I think about that? Does that make any sense at all? So it's like I do something, okay, how do I think this person will respond? And then how do I think that person will respond to me? And what do I think about that person's response to me? You know, it's a projecting a mind into a mind, then back onto the mind. And then you can do that a couple more times.
notices another jay watching, they'll return later and re-hide their stash so it doesn't get stolen.
It's what you call self-awareness, or being aware of how you come across or how your actions impact other people.
Which is a perfect transition to what makes the minds of humans so special. While we're probably not the only animals that can simulate other minds inside our mind, humans with our 86 billion neurons have taken it to extraordinary depths. The internal universe. When humans are born, they're cute but selfish blobs of meat.
We also have no self-awareness. Like if there's a thing I read years and years ago about, like, it was a kid on the phone on to his dad or his mum, and he was playing with a toy, and the parent on the phone who wasn't there obviously because they were on the phone was like, described the toy to me, and the kid was like, it's just a car, it's just a toy, because as the kid couldn't process why. It's this whole thing of understanding what another mind thinks about what you're doing. A mind understanding a mind understanding a mind is that when you're looking at an object, say I'm looking at this, I can see it and I can process it. But someone who isn't here or isn't watching, let's say, calls me and they go, what are you doing? I say, I'm looking at a bottle. They go, oh, describe it. A baby can't go, well, I'm looking at it, so why don't they know what it looks like? Because if I can see it, why can't they see it? They can't understand there's a disconnect between what they're doing and another person's mind, and go, oh, they're not here, so of course they don't know what I'm looking at. They don't know what it is. So that's something that kind of comes through as they develop, and it's usually the point where they start recognizing themselves in a mirror and stuff.
Solely focused on their own needs. But around 18 to 24 months, a baby becomes able to recognize itself in a mirror.
There.
It realizes that something that seems to be other is actually itself, which is usually a delightful experience for the human larvae. But it's also the first step of a powerful realization. You're not just an observer in the world, there are also others that can observe you.
Yeah, so you have agency and other people have agency too. So now it's the whole question of, like, how minds work in society, and how what I do, the impact that has on other people, whether it's, business, personal relationships, sex, etc., etc. Like, it's all based on, how do I feel I come across to someone else, and is that accurate? Is that an accurate reflection, and all that kind of stuff? Yeah.
You see and you're seen. And if you're seen, well, then you can't just behave egoistically all the time, because you need the goodwill of others to stay alive.
There we go.
We humans are not just simulating other minds in our minds.
We're simulating how other minds perceive our minds within our minds.
We simulate minds simulating minds. We think about what others think. We think about what they think about us thinking about what they think, and so on. There are a lot of layers. This awareness of the minds of others may be one of the origins.
That's it. It's that aspect there, but also with that comes imagination, the ability to understand what other people are thinking or comprehend what other people are thinking. And when you put that all together, that's what gives us the ability to put ourselves outside of ourselves and go, okay, well, this thing isn't working. I want to try something new. We're no longer locked in like a lion is or a bird is to a set script. We're able to kind of comprehend and work and manage and divvy things out and communicate those things. That's the difference.
Of our moral conscience, and a huge reason why we're able to live in large societies with other humans we're not related to, and may have spawned one of our most charming obsessions, storytelling. We don't just remember that an event happened, we imagine what the people that were part of it were thinking.
And we also like to imagine what the people we're telling a story to are thinking, It's the reason why, if telling a good joke or telling an interesting story or having a great, anecdote that really works feels so good to us. It's because it's the realization of, like, oh, I've done something, or said something, or created something other people like, and it changes how they view me. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense at all?
We think they should have been thinking what might have happened if they'd acted and thought differently. Combined with our ability to create fictional universes to plan ahead, we've created countless fictional worlds.
Yeah, so it's like I was saying earlier, our ability to the tools our brain gave us to survive by being able to separate ourselves from the world we're in and find solutions to problems, be them social, or it can, or finding food or whatever it was, finding water, etc. Also is the same tool that gives us the ability to kind of create a concept and deliver that concept to another person because we have shared neurological experiences and what have you. So now I'm able to go, here's a love story, and someone will look and go, oh, I understand the connections there,
With people that don't exist, but that we deeply relate to, that are real to us. Every movie, novel, or comic is humans sharing their internal simulations with each other. Whether you see a photorealistic apple in your mind, or feel the concept of an apple, in the storytelling space, we're all able to come together and understand each other. This is how we transport information about morality and our values, about what we think is good or bad.
And that's how human beings are allowed to have culture. It's how we're allowed to build civilization past just, like ants, farming, what the hell is it called now? Fungus, which is something they do. Like, animals can have sort of like, agriculture, quote unquote. But this is kind of what the main primary difference of that is.
So maybe the most amazing thing about human minds is that they're fundamentally social, filled with voices, ideas, and perspectives from countless others. Your thoughts and feelings have been shaped by stories that never happened, but that you've absorbed and simulated in your mind in a way that's unique to you. In a very real sense, your secret mind isn't just yours, but a collaborative creation between you and all the human minds that came before.
That's kind of what I was saying right at the beginning. It's like, it's not that our minds are like, our brains and our minds can't be so unique that, because if they were, we wouldn't be able to understand or relate to other people. There's always going to be a common collection of things there, regardless of your culture, regardless where you're from. There's usually a base set of like base emotional. There's an emotional foundation that's very base, that's very sort of established there. Because if that didn't exist, things like, this hurts me, or this is funny, or this tastes good, or this is attractive to me, those things wouldn't be relatable. And if they weren't relatable, it would make almost impossible for anyone to like communicate with each other in any real sense.
And if you want, you can add your stories as well, for the ones that come after. Our latest limited edition.
Okay, very cool. Nice little commercials. I need to do more of these. I used to do a few of them. I did a couple I think 6 months ago, and then I stopped. But I'm going to get back into it. But yeah, that was cool. Okay, great. Awesome. Take care, guys. Peace.